right. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 6 of the Agents Unleashed podcast, the show that helps you to sort the signal from the noise in the fast-paced world of agentic AI. My name's Thomas Maybrier, and I'm the digital media producer for Valerie, one of the core contributors to OLIS, who sponsor this show. If you haven't heard of OLIS or you haven't heard of Agents Unleashed, let me tell you quickly a little bit about both. OLIS is the best way for anyone to own and monetize an AI agent, and that includes people like you. To learn more about how you can do that, head to olis.network. And Agents Unleashed isn't just a podcast. It's also the premier event series for people interested in the intersection of crypto and AI agents. Events have been held all over the world. We've had over 70 speakers and presenters and 2,500 in-person attendees. To learn more or watch videos from previous events, you can head to olis.network/agents-unleashed. And by the way, the next Agents Unleashed event has just been announced. It's going to be held in Cannes in France on June 30th. RSVPs are now open, so don't waste any time. Head to the show notes or the description box on YouTube for more information on how to reserve your spot. Today's show is an interview with Oleg Golev, who heads the product at Sentient. Sentient is both a foundation and a labs, and their focus is democratizing AI and making it possible for community contributions and community ownership to bring about the AGI of tomorrow. So Sentient's connection to the OLIS ecosystem is through the OLIS Mac Marketplace, where Sentient's Dobby model is available for developers to use in their apps. It also helps to power one of the use cases in Perl, the agent app store, agents.fun. Dobby is a really cool model with some unique features, so it was really cool to get to talk to somebody who knows so much about not just how it was created, but how Dobby and models like it are so important for the future of open source user-owned AI. All right, without further ado, here's my conversation with Oleg Golev. Okay, yeah, today my guest is Oleg Golev. He leads product at Sentient, and today I wanted to have him on the show to tell us a little bit about Sentient, what they've been doing, and we'll also share a little bit about how the OLIS Mac Marketplace makes use of some models that Sentient provides for us. So, yeah, I think for those who haven't heard of Sentient, what's the mission?
So, first of all, I just want to clarify that there is Sentient Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization. And the goal of Sentient Foundation is to make sure that we strive to achieve aligned Open AGI. And that's why we sponsor Open AGI Summit. That's the goal of all these conversations about verifiable compute and AI co-ownership and all of those related conversations. And then there's Sentient Labs, which is the company branch, right? This is where a lot of the real building happens right now to bootstrap, but our goal is to get to a place where Sentient Foundation runs by itself with community contributions and community support. As for your question at hand, the reason why Sentient Foundation and Sentient Labs under the umbrella term Sentient has really entered the picture is we've seen a very critical problem in the way that AI is being developed. If you see how people, and by people I mean AI developers, AI builders, AI researchers, so these are either amateur builders who have over time developed a very developed skill set in model building, AI agent development, or maybe these are researchers that are doing their bachelor's, master's, PhDs in AI. A lot of their contributions go into the open source. A lot of their contributions go out there into conference papers, and the rewards for them are very simple. The rewards are stars on GitHub, or saves on Hugging Face, and their downloads. And then they do all this stuff in the hopes of either becoming a professor if they're valiant and they have that kind of set moral compass, or they go ahead and just try and get hired by these very big few closed source companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and Perplexity. And there's kind of nothing more to it. There's inherently a very extractive relationship between anything that happens in AI centralizing the power behind closed source doors. And so Sentient was built with that in mind to try and find a solution to a way that we can bring the entire world to build AI together and actually get rewarded for that effort. So anybody from someone with a very particular useful data set for evaluations to somebody who's been building models for years to somebody with very hyper specialized knowledge somewhere in University of Washington, Seattle, or somebody at Cambridge or somebody in Melbourne, Australia, any of these people can come together and contribute to building new models or contribute to building just more generically AI and be incentivized to do that. Instead of just being incentivized by stars and downloads, they'll be incentivized by some actually monetary value. So this system is what Sentient has originally built to design and to think about and to go towards. And we're still going down the direction. Our ultimate goal is aligned open AGI that is built with community, where the community contributions are awarded. Very simple goal.
Right. So you just mentioned two different ways that AI is built, evaluations and then building the model, which there's a lot of subtasks inside something like that. So how would you say, like, how is AI being built? Like, what's the role for a community in building AI?
The role of community for building AI is to take over the entire building part, right? At the end of the day, when people talk about something like centralized compute versus decentralized compute, the role of decentralized compute is important. It's cheaper compute, it's more available, it creates a good marketplace for people to, to lend their hardware and other things. But there's nothing inherently different about the compute that's decentralized and the compute that's centralized. With data, it's different. With data, if you have decentralized data and decentralized effort towards model building, what you're working with is you have a set of, evaluation sets, data sets, a set of experiences and expertises that are very hard to collect in a centralized way. A closed source company would never be able to scale in terms of the possible quality of data that is achievable through decentralized data aggregation and decentralized training from different people's data sources. And so that inherently is a very good bet to take, first of all. Second of all, the entire model building process, when we talk about this is a model that was trained on the entirety of that was pre-trained on the entirety of internet, and then there is some fine-tuning on these specific tasks and these extra data. There's data mixing and there's reinforcement learning on these axes and whatever, right? And you get that final model out, and then you have the final evaluations, and you do a little bit more post-training afterwards to make sure that it's in the state that in which you want to release it. That process for a closed source company is not a very secret process. It's a very experimental process, right? It's a lot of trial and error, but the process is more or less established. Bringing that process into a centralized world and making that process be completely community contributed, completely community built is one process that we can all think about trying to get to. So pre-training on the internet of data, we can do. Done. Step one, we can do the check mark. Supervised fine-tuning and reinforcement learning on different things. This is where a lot of the community data sets, as I said, can come in. And then the evaluation is also important. How do we know whether it works well on something if it may have been leaked into the training data? A lot of allegations came out with Llama 4 Maverick that a bunch of the training data a lot of the training was poisoned by some things in the evaluation set. And so we can't trust the numbers of Llama 4 Maverick. Then there's obviously the vibe check. At the end of the day, you check it and then you suddenly realize, oh yeah, it's actually not as good of a model as the benchmarks say it is. And so this kind of working with limited information, working with blocked information, unavailable information, in the decentralized world where people have something valuable that is just to them gives that edge to decentralized training and decentralized data that a lot of other decentralized premises, where other decentralized premises don't really have as much moat. So this is why decentralized training and decentralized data aggregation, I completely believe in. Okay, so this is the difference, and this is where community comes in. The whole process you can imagine being completely decentralized.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. In a forthcoming episode, or actually maybe the one that I will release before this one, I was looking at how we're seeing more like agentic AI applications where being able to observe the user's desktop, for example, like Copilot for Microsoft Windows, like you'll be able to allow Copilot to see your screen while you get answers. I've been wondering, especially as like these multimodal models that handle video really well, I've been wondering as that gets more and more powerful, if there's not maybe a risk of like inadvertently or through an agreement providing a lot of data, like in a way that maybe you're not totally clear that that's what you're doing.
Amazing question. This is the reason why Department of Defense or medical facilities or a lot of other companies are not allowed to use ChatGPT, is because at the end of the day, whatever information, I'm going to use your example of.
Yeah, please.
Desktop control, right? What it's doing is it's through an SDK collecting information about what's happening on your laptop. And then it's putting that into one information package and it's sending that out to the servers that are running the model. And then the model looks at that information and it does its own model thing. It gives the output and then the system does something based on the output. But the fact of the matter is data was collected about what was happening on your desktop, and it was sent to the server running the model. If somebody like OpenAI is running the model, well, guess what? They see all of your data. So 100%, this is just how it works. And this is why anybody working for a company or anybody, even as an individual, worried about data privacy, they all opt for self-hosting. So you host the models yourself on your own hardware, and so your data never leaves your own machine. So yes, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. My expectation is that, especially since these models are getting so much better at connecting, the one I was looking at recently was Gemini 2.5 Pro. Google
Oh yeah.
built like a demo where they give it a YouTube URL and a prompt, and then it uses the transcript of the audio, but then also it's like computer vision capabilities to like to build like a custom learning like application based on what's the content of the video. And like it's so fast and it's so good in a way that like 18 months ago that wasn't possible. I'm expecting that we're going to see a lot more of that. So, and there's even some services that I use personally where like SoundCloud, for example, where I upload a lot of stuff to SoundCloud. Recently, they've changed their terms of service to allow user uploads to be used for AI training. That's one TOS change that I know about. How many others are there going to be that I don't know about?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Because the only way you perceive it as an end user is you go on the platform and there is a little banner. If even, right? There's a little banner that says we changed our terms of service by
Yeah.
continuing to this website. You agree to them. And you never really know how much information is collected. Shocker, all of your information is being collected
Yeah, of course.
if you didn't realize.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think a lot of people don't though. Like
Yep.
it's worth pointing out that there's lots of information that's not just what you enter in the text box, but like the time of day, where you are, what you open last, the last link that you clicked, what cookies you have. Like,
Yeah,
I mean that
PSA
this is
to
all.
everybody watching this podcast. The moment that you enter, my friend Lucy and her dog, and we're going to this event tomorrow into ChatGPT, of course they know. And obviously they do some data cleaning and everything, but it ends up in the analytics and ends up in the training data. It ends up everywhere. This is what you're sharing with OpenAI by using ChatGPT. So be very careful. I'm not saying don't use those products, but I'm saying be careful with what you ask.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's my position as well. Like it's okay to sometimes make these trade-offs, but you should be aware of the trade-offs that you're making. So I think you made a great and multifaceted argument for decentralization and the value of like community contributions towards pushing AI forward. So now I want to get a little bit more specific and talk about like how AI agents use
Mm,
models, like, and particularly the ones that Sentient is working on. Like,
yeah.
why does an AI agent need more than one model?
So to be very clear, right, this discussion about this decentralized training and everything, this is purely about models. Model and agent, again, depending on the audience, right? I would like to make it clear. An agent is just a piece of code that at some point makes decisions based on model output. Now, that's a very loose definition. There's tryhards and diehards that will say there's agents and there's AI workflows and they're a different thing. And they are a different thing. But for the purposes of this conversation, for the purposes of, common conversation, we're just going to say any piece of code that just calls an LLM, it makes some decisions, is an agent. So why do agents use multiple models? Well, an agent is a piece of code might have to do multiple tasks in response to some prompt, in response to some request from the user. So if the user asks, can you give me um, the latest, price of BTC and then make me a chart of the last month of BTC price. So there's kind of two parts. One is you have to figure out the data for the price of BTC over the past month. And then the second part is you have to make the graph. The first one might be, your piece of code in your agent goes out and it makes a call to a certain API, or maybe it goes and does a search on a, with a certain search engine that's optimized for data. It gives you back that information. Then that information some code has to be written to process this information. So that first decision to make the API call to grab the data has to be determined by an LLM, or in most systems that we write right now, LLM decides that. That's a tool calling capability is what we call it. And so there are some models that are much better tool calling than other use cases. Then once that data is back, then can call an LLM again and say, okay, I have this data. Can you please write some code to process it and make me a graph in something like Matplotlib, something very simple. And then the model writes that code and you execute it in an environment, and then you give the user back the graph that they asked for. The coding part is also a different use case that a different model might be better at. So the way that this AI agent might look like at the end of the day is when the question comes in To decide whether the question needs certain types of data, you use model number one that's really good at tool calling and deciding whether to call some APIs. And then once the data is back, you call model number two, something like Claude or Quen. Those are really good coding models to actually make the graph itself. And what you end up with is you end up with these agents that take advantage of 2, 3, maybe 4, depending on your use case, different models. One model is responsible for routing or deciding which data sources to talk to. One model is for coding. One model is for summarization. One model is for something else, hyper optimized for their specific tasks. So AI agents can use many models. And so if you think about collaborative development of AI agents, you can think about community having built each one of these models, and therefore this like a trickle down effect of value from agent level into model level that's happening here in this architecture. So that's just one example, but hopefully it gets the point across.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well described, like this idea that it needs different types of tools for different situations and different models are better at different things. So with that in mind, being better at different things and like having different characteristics, maybe you can tell me about the Dobby model. I noticed that you used the word loyal when describing it. So why loyalty, and like how do you measure loyalty?
Yeah. So Dobby is a very interesting experiment, and I'm going to call it experiment because it very much is a prototype number one in something that we've been calling the loyalty factory or the Dobby factory. The reason why Dobby was released is not to, try and push ourselves against Grok and say, look, we have a model that says swear words and it's funny. That wasn't really the point. The point is, it is a funny model that says swear words, but it also did not lose any performance on any of the benchmarks either. What you see when you work with model development is that fine-tuning on one axis has a lot of unintended downstream consequences. If you have axes A, B, C, D, improving something on axis A might actually decrease performance on axes C and D, then improve somehow unrelated axis B performance, and then it removes safety guardrails. So now, it tells you to jump off a cliff or, light up a car, and suddenly it's not a usable model. And so the reason why Dobby is so important is because it displays two accomplishments. One is we were able to make a model that is extremely unhinged and terrible, by the old person's way of saying it. All the while, it is safe. So it has basic safety. It will not inspire harm. It'll bully you, but it will not inspire harm. It will also be able to perform at the level of the original model, original llama. No change in benchmark performance. And it does adhere to a set of values, a set of beliefs. So it thinks open source is the best and closed source is evil. It believes that crypto and decentralization is the future. That's the specifics. Like, why are these specifics important? The reason it's important is because we taught it to be good at axis A, that is basically polar opposite of something else. And it's good at polar opposites somehow. And that's a great achievement in achieving training in a way that almost doesn't make sense. Like, you're training on things that it shouldn't be good at the same time, right? That's the TLDR. And so this product, now I'm gonna say what it is as a product. As a product, this Dobby factory or loyalty factory is taking models and saying, you have all these different axes down which the model can perform better or worse. Imagine an experience where you just say, yeah, I'm gonna, like little sliders. I want it to be really good at this. I don't care about this one. This one I care about. This one I don't care about. This one I care about. And it just gives you the model that according to those parameters works. It just works. That's the really critical achievement that, as you can see, Llama 4 didn't do a great job at. They messed up somewhere. But that's the critical achievement. It is being able to pick and select these axes, pick and select these sliders, and regulate exactly what the model believes, what the model can do, is capable of, and how exactly it talks. Its tone, its capability, its values and alignment, all of the above. So this is how we perceive the alignment problem, is imagining it with these sliders. That's what Dobby accomplishes, and that's what we're building, and that's the loyalty or alignment pipeline, whatever name you prefer, that we're building looks like.
So I guess maybe one other thing I would like to ask is, since we have these Dobby models available through the Mech Marketplace, for developers who watch this and they're thinking about calling this tool for their OLS agent, What are some use cases that you think it would be particularly well suited for?
Percent. So this Dobby model in particular was an experiment. It's a successful experiment. And what it's best at, it's best at summarization. What we found is that when asked regular llama and told, can you give it to me briefly? Can you give it to me just the central points? It would not do that great of a job in that it would omit some important information. And honestly, you want a summary that's to the point. And all these models are trained to be relatively verbose. Dobby was trained to be extremely concise. It summarizes information in a snap, and it's extremely good at not saying extra things, even when it's saying unhinged stuff. So if you're fine with the tone of Dobby and you want that in your application, great. That's the prerequisite. And if you want something in your application that does really good summarization, this is your model. You can go to Sentient Chat if you have an access code, if you've been granted access, and you can try Dobby there, or you can go on Fireworks. Dobby is also available via API, and it's available on LS Marketplace, wherever it's available on Hugging Face. It's available everywhere. You can go ahead and try it. If it fits your use case of summarization, please go ahead and use it. It's a great thing for that.
Cool. What do you think might be next for this model or other similar types of like novel development that Sentient might do? Like anything that you're particularly excited about?
So at the model level, it's very hard to do self-reflection. That's something that self-coined term. It's not a real term. Don't look it up. Self-reflection is imagine you're talking to a friend, right? And the friend will do things for you, but the friend still has his own personality. So the content that the friend makes and the personality of that content is completely different from the way that the friend itself speaks. So you can imagine asking something like, can you write me a formal email to my professor asking for an extension on this assignment? And then the answer is, yeah, bro, but you should have been studying way longer. You were wasting your time going out to frat parties. But yeah, whatever. Here is your email. And then it writes the email formally. That is very hard to do.
Yeah, totally.
So this kind of split personality and like personality reflection, whatever you want to call it, I don't have a name for it, is very hard to do. So I feel like what people are moving towards now that we're in this era of reasoning and test time compute and inference time compute and everything, there is a component of AI experience that's not related to any of that. There's a component of AI experience that's all about how the model speaks and how it interacts with you. This is the way you want to make the user feel happier, make the user feel more comfortable. And so if the model is able to provide that kind of experience I just showcased, I feel like I would love that experience. I'm sure that a lot of my friends would love that experience. I'm sure that a lot of people in the world would like that experience, especially in their language, to feel like you're more connected with with the AI you're interacting with. So that's exciting. In terms of Dobby, that's the general thing I'm excited about. In terms of Dobby, there's a lot of Dobby improvements on the way. We've heard the feedback from the community. The community said we want Dobby to be able to do more structured output. So for example, if I ask for a list, let's say give me the top 10 coins of Solana, and you give some of that data to Dobby, Dobby should be able to give you that as a list, and then for each list point, it gives you that unhinged weird comment. And so that's coming. That's coming, and I hope that people enjoy that. I've really enjoyed the early experimental versions of Dobby in this way, so be on the lookout for that. The Dobby factory, though, is not specific to Dobby. Dobby factory is this general alignment pipeline, as I've said before. And so this pipeline inherently draws a lot of the learnings from our work with the eigenlayer model in our eigen sentient collaboration. It's drawing a lot of benefits from our other experiments that were never publicized. They're never going to be publicized. And so as a enterprise grade, a training pipeline, that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about seeing where it can get us and what kind of promise it can show in different areas for different customers and for different communities. At the end of the day, I don't know what the let's say Polygon model will look like, zero G model will look like, if they will ever exist. I'm just very excited at the prospect of being able to apply our learnings to all these different dimensions and to all these different needs. This alignment to different communities and what I'm really excited about. That's really what Dobby Factory is all about.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to take control in like a simple way, like the sliders metaphors. Like, it's really, really appealing. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I want to thank you for your time. I think it was very interesting. I'm very curious to see what people build using Dobby, the other models, whether that's through the mech marketplace or another path. So yeah, it was very cool to get the information right from the source. So thanks for that.
Of course.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll leave it here for today. That was a great conversation. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure you did too. If you have any questions for me, questions for Oleg, please get in touch with us. You can send your questions to me. I am at Thomas Maybrier on X. I'd love to hear from you. And that goes for questions, comments, feedback about the show in general as well. I'm always open to hearing from you. I'd also like to remind you, if you could give the show a like, leave a comment, subscribe, or share it with a friend, it would really help us to grow the show and reach new people. Okay, that's all for today, so I'll see you next time on the Agents Unleashed podcast.